What is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Dense Pixels podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brad, joined by my co-host this week, Carrie.
What's up?
No Mikey this week. He is traveling, but happy to have Carrie back after a couple weeks off because of band practice and things of that nature. So
me being too busy? Nah, that's never happened.
Who could have imagined? I'm super glad you're here. Arguably, is this the biggest Nintendo release of the year? I'm trying to think of if there's been anything.
I mean, technically, Arceus also released this year.
That's true.
And, that was right at the start of the year.
So what's funny about Scarlet and Violet is that all I've heard about this game, like the only narrative that's breaking through about this game, I've heard nothing about, is the game good? Is it like a fun Pokemon game? Is it a nice evolution of the series? Just like, man, did you guys know that the Switch is like 5.5 years old at this point?
Here's the thing, all right? So, like, everyone's talking about the performance issues with this game, which is completely understandable because there are a lot of performance issues with this game, Brad. Let me tell you. But before I get into that, like, let's talk about the game itself. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are a very true open world experience. The new region of Paldea feels very interesting. It does feel very spread out by nature of it being an open world. It feels like the towns are much farther apart than they've ever been before in any previous game because they put all of this landmass in between. But there's a lot about this game that I really like. You can do things in basically any order you want. There is some degree of limitation to that, though, because they say, like, go anywhere and do anything. But, like, you can't just run to certain gyms at first because, like, the gyms don't level up with you. Like, yeah, there's a level 20 gym. It stays the level 20 the whole time, which means that the level 50 gym is still level 50 right when you start the game. So you can't really necessarily go do things in any order.
There's still definitely like a preferred order that you tackle them in,
yeah. Now there's like a preferred, like there's a list basically that you can find as far as like, here are the gyms in level order. And then there's two other sort of like main story quests, which are what's called Path of Legends, which has you partnering up with this dude Arvin to take down these enormous Titan Pokemon that have grown to an unbelievable size. And those are sort of, again, there's a particular order to them. And then there's the Team Star quests where you're basically trying to take down this team of basically juvenile delinquents of kids who are skipping school and, running off and being assholes elsewhere. And there's a preferred order to them. So you can ignore certain things up to a certain point. There are literal roadblocks that the game sort of puts in front of you, though, like, the main, like the box legendaries, like the Koraidon and Miraidon, you get right at the start of the game, but they're like super depowered and you can't use them in battle. But you can use them to traverse the environment because they both look like motorcycles, right? So Koraidon and Miraidon power up through what you get from the Titan Pokemon quests. And so, like, they won't be able to swim or to glide or to climb until you've defeated a certain amount of the Titan Pokemon and have your motorcycle dragon consume what those Pokemon are sort of protecting. So that means, like, cool, you can't go to the water area until your dude knows how to swim. Makes sense. So, like, you have to do that area in order to go back and then go to the water part. Again, sort of a built-in roadblock. And then literally the Team Star people throw up actual barricades in areas that they have sort of taken over. So you have to go in and defeat them before you can sort of even move on to the next town in some cases.
So what you're telling me is that, like, when they're like, hey, do this in any order you want, like, it's, all that jazz, like, that was more just for the back of the box bullet point than an actual...
Yeah, so, like, here's the thing. I have been doing things in an unusual order compared to, like, what I probably should have been doing. I went and did some stuff I was really underleveled for, and then I went back, and then I was like 15 levels over leveled for a certain gym leader and just wiped him out in, one hit KOs every turn.
So is it like a Souls game where if you wander into an area that you're not supposed to be in, like, you're just going to get your teeth kicked in without really any warning?
Yeah,
okay.
Because the wild Pokemon are scaled up in certain areas too. So, like, you'll walk into an area and, like, start a Pokemon fight, and you'll be level 25 and they'll be level 50, and you're like, oh shit. Okay. I'm probably not supposed to be here yet.
So does the game, like, signpost you on, like, the preferred path, or is it really just like, hey, figure it out?
Not really. I mean, it's very much, hey, figure it out. It's, I've been going sort of around and be like, oh, well, I can't climb up that cliff yet, so I guess I have to go defeat another Titan Pokemon. Well, where's a Titan Pokemon on the map that I can access? Okay, I guess I'll go do that. That's on the other side of the map. Okay, while I'm over on this other side of the map, maybe I'll knock out another gym leader or two, and take out the Operation Starfall people and whatnot. So it's the game does do a decent, like, it lets you into large swaths of the map at any given time, but it's not forcing you into a particularly linear progression. You will, however, have to complete all three sort of main story quests in order to, like, get to the end game content. So
very cool.
So, I mean, I like all the gym leaders. I think what's nice about having these sort of three main story quests is now you basically have, like, a challenge on your plate for every single different, like, Pokemon typing. Like, outside of the 8 gym badges, you then have the 5 Titan Pokemon and the 5 Team Star leaders, and every single one of them is a unique typing. So, like, it's kind of cool. Like, it does sort of mean that you have to prepare to face a challenge of every single type, and you have to sort of balance your party accordingly. So that's fun to see. I think the last time we sort of saw a Pokemon try and incorporate all types rather than just, like, 8 was in Sun and Moon, because they had all, like, they didn't do gyms, they had, like, the island trials. So that I liked that about that, and I like it about this too. The stories themselves are pretty fun. Like, the characters are all good and, like, full of personality, and, like, despite the performance issues, which again I'll get into in a second, are animated with a lot of very unique personality. Like, clearly a lot of thought went into how the characters are designed and how they behave in battle, because like, you can see them in the background. I like the thought and the care put into how not just all of the human trainers, but how all of the Pokemon have been infused with a degree of personality that was not necessarily possible in earlier generations. I like the seamless nature between, wandering around and popping into a Pokemon battle. There's not the screen anymore. It's just like, you're in. Like, you're in the battle now, whether it's a trainer battle or a wild Pokemon fight. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with it, but, like, goddamn, this game performs so fucking badly. And it doesn't make any sense to me that this game performs so badly, because Arceus had some quibbly little issues and whatnot, but it wasn't this bad. And sure, the Switch is a 5.5-year-old piece of hardware. No one's debating that at this point. We probably should have gotten an upgrade a couple years ago, but I have to imagine the supply chain issues caused by COVID have largely been the reason as to why that hasn't happened yet. The Switch is a game that can run The Witcher. Right. The Switch is a game that can run Monster Hunter Rise.
Mhm.
Without major frame rate drops. Like
Yeah, but at a seriously degraded like resolution though, and I don't think that they were going. It
sure,
looks
but
like
like
they're trying
the
to have their cake and
graphics
eat it
for
too.
Pokemon are not super duper high resolution
Well, it's not. It's
graphics
not
or
just about the
textures.
graphics themselves though, because like the issue that you run into when you have an open world game is that now you're worried about things like draw distances, and you're worried about
Right.
like how does this thing look, that's way over here that you can kind of see but not
Yeah.
really. And but to your point, like they put out Arceus, which was very similar in scope, and I didn't really hear a lot of complaints about Arceus, whereas I'm seeing like online a lot of very memeable like performance hiccups.
It's it's astounding to me how badly this game performs. And again, I don't think I can sit and be like, well, it's because the Switch
Hmm.
is an old piece of hardware. Like I'm sure that has something to do with it. But again, you see other games that are, I would say, just as if not more so demanding than what's trying to be rendered here.
Hmm.
So like why is it like I don't know if it was like a rushed timeline. I don't know if, I mean, that's,
I
was
mean,
it just crunch?
to
Like,
me to me the rush timeline seems the most likely culprit, because
yeah.
like this is the first time ever where we've gotten two different, like this isn't like the combined version Pokemon game. No, we've
No,
gotten
this
two
is
distinct Pokemon games in the course of the calendar year.
right. We had Arceus, which is considered by the Pokemon Company to be a mainline entry, and then we got Scarlet and Violet. And I feel like Scarlet and Violet could have used 6 more months
Hmm.
of time in the oven, just to fix these, the code isn't optimized. There's clearly shit going on in terms of like how the game is running.
Yeah.
Um,
And I wonder
and
honestly if like that was Nintendo's pressure, because like I mean, I don't know that they predicted Splatoon 3 would be as successful as it is, because in Japan, like that game is selling like
yeah,
insane numbers. But aside from that, like there wasn't really another big hitter that they had coming out
for
this
the
holiday
holidays.
season.
Yeah.
So,
So I guess that would be my best guess. Now,
mhm.
obviously, there are ways to patch these things. There are hot fixes that can be deployed. I like to hold out some degree of cautious optimism, um, to the idea that 2 weeks from now they'll roll out a patch that fixes some of this, and then a month after that they'll fix some more and whatnot, and that eventually this game won't have these kind of issues. But like it really sucks to have a game that has so much of what I and other longtime Pokemon fans have been asking for. But then it's like, okay, cool, I'm standing in the middle of town and there's this enormous windmill that's supposed to be the sort of centerpiece of this particular area, and like it's moving as like it's ticks on a clock.
Mhm.
It's so obvious to see the frame rate stuttering, particularly on stuff that's happening in the background. Like why can't the windmill fucking rotate in a way that's smooth, just because there's like three other characters on the screen right now? Like,
Yeah.
and that's what sucks, is because like I'm not going to sit here and be like Scarlet and Violet are bad games, because they're not, because in many ways they are another step forward for the franchise in terms of how these games are played and the kind of stories and characters that they're introducing, and the open world nature that people have been asking for literally the last decade, if not longer in some cases. But compared to Arceus, it feels like a one step forward, two steps back kind of deal in
Mhm.
terms of like the way these games run, and how playable they are. Like
And
what
well,
like
it's funny because it's a case study of the power that like expectations have over us. Because if this were like a game being put out by Bethesda, like this would almost be par for the course. Like this would be
well,
totally
that's the
acceptable.
thing, I don't even know that I don't know that I would agree with that, because like as someone who has played a lot of Bethesda games, and someone who has enjoyed other janky as shit experiences, such as Sonic the Hedgehog in 3 Dimensions.
Mhm.
Um, this is probably the first time that like this level of jank has like impacted how much I am enjoying the game. Like it's so distracting at times. The pop-ins from wild Pokemon, like they give your motorcycle dragon the ability to dash, right?
Mhm.
So that you can just tear ass through these huge open environments, which you think obviously that's great. Like I'm riding a dragon that looks like a motorcycle. Obviously I want to go fast, right? But it's almost slower to do it that way because wild Pokemon will spawn directly in front of you and you can't avoid them. So you're running into battle after battle because the game literally cannot keep up with how fast it has allowed you to go.
Mhm.
Um, I mean,
Maybe that's a feature, not a bug, so that they could keep the spirit of random battles in the Pokemon series.
yeah, the random pop-ins from wild Pokemon and even honestly from characters as well. It's
Mhm.
just it's nuts. Yeah, I mean, as it is right now, this is like a 6 or 7 out of 10 kind of experience, which is disappointing because it could be an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
But the
if the
performance
performance stuff.
issues is just nuts. Now, am I still going to keep playing it? Absolutely, I am. I'm still like I'm like 4 Titan Pokemon down and 6 gym badges in at this point. Like I very much want to see sort of like, all right, like there hasn't been like a big antagonistic thing show up yet. Like something's going to happen. There's a
Mhm.
giant crater at the center of this region that we were told at the beginning of the game, don't go there, which we're obviously going to go there. So I want to know what happens story wise, and you know,
So it sounds to me then like if you're not like a diehard, then it's probably best to wait until they have a chance to hopefully work through some of these performance
I
issues.
would say if you haven't yet bought it and you have other things to play, and there's plenty of other stuff to play right now, I would say wait and see if they can fix some of this stuff, because the way that the game is now, like I had the game fucking crash on me multiple times while playing. Like
Mhm.
what the fuck? But I'm gonna keep pushing through. And I feel like it should say a lot that like I of all people, someone who literally I have a fucking Pokemon shirt on right now. I have multiple Pokemon tattoos. That even I'm just sort of like, I could put this down and I could play a more polished experience like Sonic Frontiers. Like,
a, a phrase nobody expected to say
right?
ever. Um, well, if you'd like another polished experience to check out that
I
wouldn't
am very
divert you.
curious about this game that you've been playing,
Yeah,
Brad.
so I picked up I Pentiment was a game that was announced back during Summer Games Fest, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were very excited about it because it was being directed by Josh Sawyer, who I think was the former narrative lead on Fallout New
Fallout
Vegas
New Vegas.
specifically.
Yeah.
And it looked interesting because here was this game and it had like this woodcut, 16th century art style that
He was also
was.
the director on New Vegas,
Oh, he
but
was the
yeah.
director on New Vegas. Okay.
Yeah.
And this was like a very story driven experience, and it just seemed very off the beaten path. And I said, "Wow, the style looks cool." I'm definitely into the theme of the game, which is like 16th century Bavarian village going through the Lutheran the Lutheran Reformation of the church kind of thing.
Yeah.
But big story games, like not like really the story is the game. There's not really gameplay to speak of. I don't know if it's for me. And then it came out, and everyone everywhere was raving about this game. It got ridiculously high review scores. People were just talking about how just amazing an experience it was. I'm like, all right, well, $20. We'll give it a roll. And hey, if you
Oh,
have
it's
Game
only
Pass,
$20.
and yeah, and if you Game Pass, it's on Game Pass as well. So
I don't have Game Pass.
yeah.
But
So I started playing it, and
you have $20.
I started playing Pentiment, and I am hooked. And I didn't expect to be at all. So the premise of the game is you are playing Andreas Mahler, who is a journeyman painter or like artist that's kind of doing his kind of finishing his novice journeyman work at this Bavarian village at an abbey in there, kind of working part-time in the scriptorium that's in this place, and also working on his like, his masterpiece that he can graduate to being a master. And while you're there, this murder happens with this gentleman that you meet pretty early on in the game, and you kind of get wrapped up in investigating the murder mystery. And kind of what that entails is going around to different areas of the town and speaking to folks and trying to suss out like who had the motive to do this, who had the means, who could have possibly done this. And that's really all I want to say about the story, because it definitely goes in some interesting directions. But the thing that's really intriguing about this game is that it's taking a topic that hasn't been approached too much, because games love to avoid Christianity and things about Christianity, because it can be a hot button issue, to say the least. And even less is really referred to in games about like the Lutheran Reformation, which is a part of Christian history that I'm particularly interested in.
It's a very specific point
Yes.
in history as well.
Yeah, and as someone who, like, despite being an atheist, is very much into Christian history and theology, because I find it fascinating. This has been really great. But what's super cool is that the way the characters are depicted are very down to earth, not caricatures, not like over the top like portrayals of what you might expect from like a 15th century or 16th century Bavarian village, like, and expect to have all these like kind of tropes and archetypes. They're really portrayed as real people that are, and you kind of feel like the struggle to just get through the day. And you really feel kind of like the class separation in this village between the peasants and the townsfolk, and then, the clergy that sit literally on top of the hill in the abbey, like looking down over kind of the rest of the village. And that frames a lot of how the thoughts are. And it doesn't shy away from issues of the time that don't typically make it in history textbooks, but that we kind of forget, like, people are people, and people are going to do things that people do. So, like, you encounter, like at one point in the game, you can encounter, like, this one monk and this one sister that are in the abbey are actually, like, a couple, and, like, have the secret relationship going on. And, like, if you try to tell people about it, they're like, yeah, like just shut up. Like, yeah, we get it, but just, just keep it, just chill. It's not, like, cause people know, but people are just like, look, they're happy. Like, we're not trying to mess with anyone's spot here. Nice. Things of that nature. And the other thing that's cool as well is that time in this game is persistent. So it's not one of those games where you can literally turn over every rock and, pull at every thread. When you set yourself to do something and go on an activity with somebody to kind of learn more information, it is taking up that part of the day from you. And so you choosing to do one activity may mean you don't get to do the other activity. And you only have a set amount of time before kind of things come to a head with investigating what happened with this murder, because you find that, like, one of your friends in the scriptorium was found with the body, and he's been falsely accused. You're trying to clear his name. And so, like, excuse me, as you go through the game, you're not given perfect information, and that's what's kind of interesting, is you're just kind of forced to use the information you have and solve things as best as possible. And that's your experience. Like, if you feel unsure, or if you have like a bunch of half leads that, don't really bear out, then that's just going to be what it is. And you're just going to have to kind of deal with the consequences of that situation. And it has knock-on effects that kind of persist throughout the story based on things that happen. And I kind of like not really being able to have full control of the situation, because a lot of times in games like this, like, you just have as much time as you need to, to talk to everybody and to kind of do everything. But I feel like in this game, like, there is no definitive right answer as you're going through and kind of poking at, different motives and things like that. Like, you're just kind of make the best guess, and then that guess is going to have, like, real far-ranging consequences. And then the kind of driving narrative over top of this is there's this mysterious notes that you're finding around town that were written by a very distinct hand, and that's kind of like the overarching, like, mystery that's going on alongside this murder mystery. It's a really interesting game. Like I said, having a lot of fun playing it, and if you're looking for something that a little bit different, Doesn't, it's not going to take you 30 hours to beat. I think it's like a 10, 15-hour game. And you're willing to give it a shot. I would definitely recommend checking it out if this sounds interesting and if you're into just kind of a really story and narrative driven experience.
Well, I just bought it on Steam, so I
that didn't take long.
Back. As soon as you were like, it's $20, I was like, I got $20.
Oh yeah,
I can burn $20.
Yeah, and even
for some reason, I
like
thought it was more expensive than that.
And even Andreas, who's the character that you're portraying, like you kind of have a lot of agency over his characterization and things that he feels and kind of emotions, because one of the other things is he's been betrothed to some woman back home that he's never met, so he knows that like going home is going to be, like he's kind of angsty to go home because he's never met this woman, but he wants to do right by. He's kind of like the black sheep of his family, and you can kind of, play that into your portrayal. You can role play a little bit in the Andreas role. The other thing that's really neat is that as you go through the game, you get to kind of add flourishes to your character's background, and that has real effects as well as far as different experiences you can have in the game. So one of the things for my character is they're like, "Oh, where did you study?" Beforehand, and you're like, and I was like, okay, I was like in Belgium, and I can speak Flemish pretty well and things that nature. And so later in the game, I came upon these group of folks that I was trying to talk to about something that was going on in the town, but all they spoke was Italian, so I couldn't understand what they were saying. I was kind of reliant on my friend to translate bits and pieces for me. But earlier in the game, if I had picked, I studied in Italy, I could have understood that entire conversation because, like I said, because I would have known Italian. Yeah.
I like that.
And again, sorry, I've had a hell of a throat week the past week or so. So like I said, it's one of those games where you kind of have to be willing to realize that you're only going to have like 25% of the possible experiences that you can have in the game and kind of make that your story. And then if you want to go back later and play it a different way to kind of see things that you missed, I guess you can do that. But it seems to me like this game would be really, it's a really fun game to experience the first time through before you know what's really going to happen.
Nice. Cool. I will look forward to playing that probably over this holiday weekend a bit. Mm-hmm. What I did see about the game that I, myself as fucking nerd really liked was the amount of work that went into the fonts.
Oh yeah, that I didn't even mention that part. So like, not only are there like a shitload of fonts in the game, but the fonts that are used are based on how Andreas sees the character that he's talking to, like how his perception of them is. And so like when you're talking to like the clergy, they have these very like, these very authoritative, Gothic looking fonts that look very polished and everything. But when you're talking to a peasant, they have like this very like drawn out script, that's kind of written in there. Plus another thing that'll happen is that as characters are talking, there'll occasionally be like typos in the text that's on the screen. And so what'll happen is like you'll see like it'll get spelled out and then like they'll erase like the typo and they'll actually like put in the word. It's just it just kind of like communicates different dialects and how people speak to each other. They also do this very cool thing where if there's like a proper noun in the game, you can it's underlined and you can hit the select button and it kind of zooms out and makes it look like you're seeing the game as part of a page of a book. And it has just like a little definition for all of the underlined words that are right there. And it's kind of very seamless. So you can just kind of pause. What does this mean? Zoom back in again. They do that for like a lot of the Latin phrases and stuff like that. And it's really interesting because even mid conversation, this could flip. Because I was talking to someone who Andreas perceived as someone who was a very low education, kind of a peasant person. And once he realized, like, oh, they're actually quite smart, like they're educated, it literally erased like the peasant font and replaced it with like the normal like serif font that Andreas uses when he's talking to people. So again, lot of really interesting ways that characterization of characters is communicated just through how the dialogue's presented in the game, which is again very unique and something that I've never really seen used before.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah. Well, If you want to talk about Pentiment or Pokemon or World Cup soccer, you can do that over at the Discord. Our Discord is live and has been live for a hot minute now. If you go to densepixels.com/fans, that will take you to our Discord, where you can hang out. You can submit your questions of the week, all sorts of other good stuff. Just today I added a channel for World Cup soccer discussion, so that's going to be a thing for the next few weeks. I don't
Yeah,
know.
USA played their first match against Wales today.
Wales.
Yeah. We're leading 1-0 until about the 82nd minute, and Wales tied it and another 1-1 draw.
Wales has been underestimated before, and people have paid a hard price for that too. My family background is Welsh. That's all I got for you today. Also, while you are on the internet, you can head to youtube.com/densepixels and hit that subscribe button. That helps us with the terrible algorithms that YouTube uses to promote content. And you can see our two beautiful pale faces here on the internet. And I got my hair dyed, so you can check out my updated color. And heck, while you're there, you can also subscribe to the other TNP studio shows that are also on YouTube, such as the Nerdpocalypse and Coming Distractions. And while you're online, if you're not already subscribed to the podcast version of this fine show here, make sure you do. You should be subscribing to all of the TNP Studios podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple. I'm sure there are others. Fucking, I don't know. Nerdpocalypse, Black on Black Cinema, Coming Distractions, and the weekly preview episode of Look Forward, which has been spicy as always. And then you can also subscribe to TNP Studios Premium by going to densepixels.com/premium, which is $5 a month, $50 for a year. That helps us with hosting costs and whatnot, because that shit ain't free. And that gives you access to the full premium slate of podcasts, including the airing of grievances, No Time to Bleed, The Men with the Golden Tongues, Upstage Conversation, and full episodes of the Look Forward Political Podcast. And maybe if we do that show we talked about doing a couple weeks ago, where I'm subjected to all of the 1980s action movies that I haven't seen, maybe that'll be on premium too. Yeah. As soon as we figure that out.
Like I said, I already came up with a tentative title for it. I haven't shared yet.
I can't wait. I'm actually genuinely really excited to do this experiment.
Yeah. So, very cool. So into the news this week we go.
And there's a decent bit of it.
Yeah, some heavy hitter stories. Most notably, the fact that apparently Blizzard, Activision-Blizzard to be more precise, and NetEase, who they had been partnering with in China for several years now at this point, that partnership appears to be on the rocks to the point where, as of January 23rd of next year, Blizzard games will not be playable in China. World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Hearthstone, Diablo 3, Heroes of the Storm, and StarCraft are kaputski afterwards. Now, notably not affected is Diablo Immortal. That's under a different agreement because that was developed in partnership with NetEase and not just part of a sort of licensing agreement. The CEO of NetEase, their president of global investment and partnership, blames a quote jerk who did damage behind the scenes for the reason of the falling out, which he didn't really, really put into context. Their CEO also put out a statement saying that they've tried to negotiate with sincerity with Activision Blizzard to continue the collaboration, but there are material differences on key terms, and they could not reach an agreement. Now, what's interesting is that they still plan on releasing like the Dragonflight expansion for World of Warcraft, which comes out in a couple of weeks, or actually next week, as that soon. But that's still like part of the deal where it's going to stop. So if you're in China, you buy that expansion, you can play it for 2 months, then you're done.
Yep. Well, this feels like a way to lose a lot of revenue, basically, because
I think they're okay. since Immortal is still there, like I think if they were losing Immortal, because that's them breaking into the mobile games market, which is a much bigger deal in Asia than it is in the US even. I think they'd be a little more concerned about this. And
Yeah.
maybe they were trying to play some hardball because they were just like, look, like you guys are making a shitload of money off of Immortal, like maybe we should see a little bit more coming our way in this deal. No clue how the pending acquisition by Microsoft factored into these issues as well. There's literally no mention of Microsoft in the article on Eurogamer that we're looking at. So that's very interesting as well. But they're going to continue working together with Diablo Immortal because, again, that game is making a shitload of money. And so they don't want to, kill the golden goose, as the old saying goes. But yeah, that's a big bummer for gamers in China. Very difficult anyway to get games over there as it is, just because of the tight control that the Chinese government has with pretty much any media in the country. So it's gonna be a big loss, and then, honestly, it's just gonna open the door for somebody else to kind of slide in and take those players if they're still lingering out there. So we'll see.
Yep. Oh boy, this next story is a weird one, but I had to include it because it is as weird as it is. So back in 2020, and we may have talked about this when it first happened, Cooking Mama Cookstar released, which was the first Cooking Mama game since 2008 to be on consoles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there were a couple of other like small handheld releases since then on like the 3DS and whatnot, but people like wanted a console version of Cooking Mama for reasons I personally don't understand, but whatever. There was like, oh, a new console Cooking Mama game. Cool. Cooking Mama Cookstar. And then it came out in 2020 and it was briefly available on the Switch eShop, and then an announced PS4 version had been listed but then not released. So people were like, And then there were some rumors that the game was acting as a crypto miner.
I'm now vaguely remembering the story.
It was
Very
like,
vaguely.
this is going to use your system to mine crypto. It's got blockchain built in. And then this whole deal broke down between like the developer and the publisher and the holder of the IP. So the developer was Office Create Core, and the IP holder was Office Create. Basically, the publisher, the IP holder, said Cookstar didn't meet its quality standards. First Playable was the developer, so Office Create was the IP holder. Basically, First Playable went, hey, here's our game, and Office Create Core went, this isn't good. What's this blockchain shit? And then like their like third party publishing partner, Planet Entertainment, fucking released it anyway. And so the IP holders were like, hold up. We didn't approve this. What is this bullshit? So there's basically been all this like legal back and forth over the last 2 years. That ultimately was decided that in favor of the IP holder, saying the publisher, Planet Entertainment, and the developer were not authorized to release the game, which basically turns Cooking Mama Cookstar into a bootleg Cooking Mama game, which is very funny. The decision says that Planet Entertainment now owes Office Create more than $20.9 million in profits, which is wild. I guess the game went back on sale at some point, but yeah.
What a weird story.
A really weird story where basically the sort of third party people who the IP holder had allowed to develop this game and put this game together submitted a game for approval. It wasn't approved. They put it out anyway, and now they owe the IP holder a lot of money. So
Well, and I totally understand them trying to protect the good name of the Mama franchise. A series that also had, if you remember, Babysitting Mama.
I sure do remember
Wii,
Babysitting Mama. I remember those terrible dolls.
Yeah, it literally came with like a baby doll that you had to shove a Wii remote up its ass to control what you did with the baby in the game. Yep. So. Very interesting. I know my wife liked those early Cooking Mama games that were on the DS. We never did.
Yeah, I liked the early couple ones. Like the first one came out in 2006 on the DS, and it was a cute little. It was almost like a fun tech demo for like the touchscreen on the DS, and sort of the capabilities for it. So I don't know. I had fun with the first Cooking Mama game. I have not played one since. So who knows?
The final big news story of the week is that Yugi Naka has finally been arrested for his crimes of bringing Sonic the Hedgehog to life.
No, the bigger crime is Bowling Underworld, and you know it.
The actual crime that he was arrested for apparently was insider trading, where he and two other men have been reported to have been arrested and charged with insider trading in Japan, connected to Square Enix, which is kind of crazy. Not really sure what the trading was revolved around, like what specific kind of inside knowledge they had of what was going on Square. But Yuji Naka was accused of purchasing shares worth 2.8 million yen, which is about $16,000 American or British pound sterling, which is about the same as it is in dollars right now. In Aiming, which is a Japanese developer that Square partnered with to make a Dragon Quest mobile game before the company's involvement was public knowledge. Insider trading is one of those things that you don't really want to fuck around with because all the regulatory bodies around markets in pretty much every country, it seems like, does not take that shit lying down.
No. Yuji Naka being arrested for insider trading was not on my 2022 bingo card, I gotta say. But it did result in some really funny takes, like breaking news: Yuji Naka has escaped custody by jumping out of a helicopter and sliding down a series of steep city streets using a piece of debris as a snowboard. The government has deployed their fleet of massive semi-trucks to contain this threat.
What an unfortunate timing thing for him, because around the same time that Sonic Frontiers releases, and it is apparently not a dumpster fire, Yuji Naka.
No, apparently it's fun and good. Like,
yeah, we'll talk when we get to the post office. People had questions for me specifically about Sonic Frontiers, so
I don't think Yuji Naka had anything to do with Sonic Frontiers.
I don't think he did either, but still, Sonic the Hedgehog, a bastard creation of his warped mind, the same warped mind that requires him to trade with inside knowledge. It
wasn't just Yuji Naka; it was also Naoto Oshima who created Sonic the Hedgehog. You can't give all the credit to Yuji Naka.
Blame, exactly, Carrie. Blame is what I'm giving to Yuji Naka.
You're terrible. Sonic is good. I'll go down with this ship.
You poor brainwashed child. Well, Layson, we'll talk about it when we get to the post office. I have some thoughts on Sonic Frontiers.
All right, I'm sure you do. Well, meanwhile, if you want to buy some Sonic merchandise, and boy howdy, there's a lot of it these days, you can do that on Amazon. So you go to densepixels.com/Amazon, you shop as normal. We get a little teeny tiny they skirt a little bit off the top, just enough so that Mr. Bezos doesn't really notice on his bottom line how much is missing. And then we get to... Again, it helps us keep the lights on here at Ye Old Dense Pixels podcast. So, boy howdy.
Before we get to the post office, if you have 2 hours of time, highly recommend spending that going on to YouTube, finding the H. Baumer Guy YouTube channel, and find out what happens when a concerted effort just to make a video about the origins of the Minecraft or of the Roblox oof sound.
Oof noise.
Yeah. Leads to a 2 hour demolishing of video game audio I don't want to call him legend because he would call himself legend.
He would call himself a legend.
Tommy Tallarico.
Tommy Tallarico,
who I always kind of knew was like he had major like douchebag energy.
Dude,
did not realize that he was just like a Trumpian level, just like everything he breathes and speaks is just like an incredible lie.
It's astounding. So yeah, I put this on the docket because this came out over the weekend, and the complete step-by-step demolishment of Tommy Tallarico's abundance of lies. Like, he cannot stop lying. And you know that he's a pathological liar because he tells the same lies over and over and over again. And he tells them exactly the same way every single time. Tommy Tallarico, who more recently has been known for the so far wildly failed experiment of reviving Intellivision and the Amico console, which raised several millions of dollars in investor funds to try and bring this subpar piece of shit plastic trash to the living rooms of uninformed Karens everywhere. Again, like, they've been trying to raise money and put out the Intellivision Amico console since 2018, and still hasn't come out yet. But previously, Tommy Tallarico was known primarily for running the symphony tour called Video Games Live, and otherwise was someone who wrote music for mostly mediocre video games, with Earthworm Jim really being the one exception. Because, who out here has really spent a lot of time sinking a ton of time into Casper, Spirit Dimensions, or Devastation, or I guess Advent Rising was a game that.
But Carrie, didn't you know that he worked hand in hand and was handpicked by Shigeru Miyamoto to work on Metroid Prime?
Miyamoto to work on Metroid Prime. Golly, I mean, it's such a takedown of someone who experienced like a whiff of what fame is in like the late 90s and early 2000s. On I guess mid 2000s was when he was doing the shows on G4, like Electric Playground and whatnot. And just has been chasing that dragon ever since, man. Like,
and it's funny because, again, like I mentioned, I called like the way he kind of carries himself as Trumpian, because like the lies that he tells are like easily disprovable. Like one of the things one of the things he lies about, he's like, oh, like I put on the largest symphony show ever attended, and it had 700,000 people, except that the venue that he put it on at held like 100,000 people. Like, it wasn't.
Well, here's the thing. Except the venue that he claimed that it was at held 100,000 people, and the venue it was actually held at held 2,000 people.
Yeah. So it's just like what the fuck are you like talking about? Like, so it's like the lie where it's like, oh, like there were 1.5 million people at this inauguration, and this photograph proves it. And it's like, no, that's a lie, dude. Like, I have eyes, I can see.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately it's essentially a documentary about not just the oof noise. It started with the oof noise because the oof noise, we found out, was from a game called Messiah, and someone at some point ripped the noise out of this game and put it into like a sort of sound effects pack that the Roblox developers purchased. Roblox didn't go into Messiah and rip the sound out of that and put it in their game. This was somewhere someone just copy pasted this noise into like a development kit, something like that.
Right.
And it's so telling, like the series of tweets that Tommy put out, where first, you know, he the first thing he said was, "Oh, that's from the game Messiah, which like my studio worked on, which meant Joey Callis made this noise." And then he clearly did like a search as far as the popularity of the noise in meme culture, deleted his original tweet,
Mm-hmm.
and then said, "Oh, we made that." And then it became "I made that." And this is Tommy Tallarico is a guy who wants unyielding credit and attention
Mm-hmm.
and fame. He wants to be a rock star. He clearly so desperately wants to be a rock star. If you look at photos of him performing with video games live, this is a guy who very, very much thinks of himself as like a hardcore rock star. Um, but he just wants attention and recognition for the work of others that
Well,
he's going to claim
well,
as
he's
himself.
certainly going to get a lot of attention. Thanks
Yeah,
to
I
this
mean,
video.
the funniest thing about this whole documentary, though, is that this could have serious legal repercussions
Mm-hmm.
for Tommy Tallarico, because Tommy Tallarico, who cannot stop himself from lying, claimed in investor videos that certain people from the industry were working for him on the Amico. They were not working for him. And here's a fun thing about lying in investor pitches is that's illegal. Misrepresenting your product to people who are going to give you money for that product, and misrepresenting your company for people who are going to give you money for your company based on the expectations that you set. That's called securities fraud. And I may have only worked in financial reporting for about a year, but I'm pretty sure that's really fucking illegal, and you're not allowed to do that. So if anyone who invested money into the Amico on any of their crowdfunding platforms over the last 4 years, um, I sort of have a feeling that there's probably some lawyers drafting up some big time class actions against
Well,
Intellivision and Tommy Tallarico.
what's funny is that the crowdfunding websites are, he's probably protected there because the terms and conditions are kind of written. Well, I don't know. We'll see. It could be interesting. I'd be more worried about like the venture capitalist money that
That
he
too.
raised.
I mean, yeah, because he did get some venture capitalist stuff
Yeah,
too.
because those people can
Um,
also afford to fucking have expensive attorneys to kind of roll after you like that. So
yeah. So
more to come. But
anyway,
yeah, more than I ever cared to learn about Tommy Tallarico, a guy that I was pretty sure was kind of a d-bag in the first place,
yeah,
and to a higher degree than I could have ever imagined.
he sucks, and he has always sucked. Now, here's the other thing: if on the topic of YouTube documentaries, I cannot recommend enough pairing the new Defunct Land piece with the H Bomber guy Roblox oof noise.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's basically like the Defunct Land goes into basically we learn a lot about a composer who never sought out any credit for the incredible prolific amount of work that he put out, and was content to be a faceless musician with
Mhm.
an incredible level of legacy out there. So yeah, if again, if you're like, man, I don't know what to do with all this free time on this holiday weekend, watch the H Bomber guy oof Roblox noise documentary, and then go to Defunct Land and watch the Disney Channel Jingle documentary.
So, quick trip to the post office. Then, actually, you guys filled it up in a hurry, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
I
Um,
literally put that in halfway through recording the show, and I was like, shit, we don't have any questions in the post office.
And so this isn't in the post office. I know somebody asked me about Sonic Frontiers and kind of the reaction to Sonic Frontiers. I've never seen more fawning over a 7 out of 10 video game in my entire life. Such is the Stockholm syndrome that has been that is evident in the brains of Sonic the Hedgehog fans. They're
Well,
like so many people are just like, man, this game's definitely like a 7, but what a 7 it is. Like it's like a 10 in some parts and like a 5 in others, but still like the parts that are a 10 are a 10. I just find it interesting.
well, I still haven't played it yet. I mean, at this point, I will probably wait for it to go on sale because
which will happen. Yeah, which will happen
It'll
like
happen next
immediately.
week.
Yeah, sure.
So I'm gonna grab it on sale because I knew if I got into Sonic Frontiers, I wouldn't be able to get into Pokemon. But in hindsight, I probably should have just fucking bought Sonic and waited for them to fix Pokemon. So
gotta say, really hope P5R goes on sale on Steam tomorrow. So because I'm really jonesing to actually sit down and play it on Steam Deck, but I'm not paying $60 for a 5-year-old game. So to the post office now, Cam asks, what is your favorite video game ending and your least favorite video game ending?
That's tough. Like,
I can tell you what my favorite is.
What's your favorite?
You're going to laugh at this.
Okay.
Metal Gear Solid 4. Because it literally lasted like 90 minutes. They managed to it's the only video game ending I've ever seen that literally halfway through the ending introduces a new plot hole and then immediately resolves it during the ending. After you're finished playing, they're like, we're going to open up this massive gap in the plot. Oh no, we're going to tie it off. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable, but we're going to tie it
off. I think, at least as far as like recent stuff, I really enjoyed the ending of Outer Wilds.
Mm-hmm.
There's something sort of moving about the way that game ends. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to spoil it. Thought the ending to Breath of the Wild was lovely.
Ghost of Tsushima had an excellent ending. What a fucking banger of a last, like, just kind of the way that game ends. Really cool. Like I can't say enough good things about it. That like Metal Gear Solid 4 is kind of like a funny answer. Like Ghost of Tsushima is probably the greatest like end game experience that I've had that I can remember in recent memory at least.
My least favorite is Golden Sun Dark Dawn.
Because it ends on a cliffhanger that will never be
resolved. It ends on a cliffhanger that's yet to be resolved. It's been 12 years I've been sitting on this cliffhanger. And I don't have a lot of hope that it's ever going to be resolved at this point. I honestly think that there's going to be a remake of the first 2 Golden Sun games before they resolve the ending from the 3rd game, which, like, fuck, I'd be hype as shit for a Golden Sun 1 and 2 remake. I think the ending of 2 is great. It, like, so neatly, like, resolves so many storylines while still leaving things sort of, like, open enough for them to have continued. But the ending of Golden Sun Dark Dawn really, really, really sucks.
The Infamous games always stick in my head as having really poor endings. Really, really stick the landing poorly. 2 did a better job than 1. 1 had a really bad ending and a really shitty final boss fight also. But yeah, the Infamous games, for as cool as their story is, did not finish the last leg very well. Anthony has a slew of questions. The God of War one's going to have to wait for Micah to come back. Carrie talked about Pokemon a lot, but what was the starter you picked again?
I went with the Weed Cat. Little Sprigatito. I learned immediately that there's filters in this game that prevent you from naming Weed Cat after weed stuff, which sucks. It wouldn't let me name the cat Ganja, and I was so fucking mad. I was like, they're not gonna filter Ganja. They just filter things like fuck and the N-word, right? Nope, they filtered Ganja. They also filtered Spliff, and I was furious. I was so mad I couldn't name my Weed Cat Spliff.
Did an English developer at Game Freak just like call their 15-year-old niece to be like, hey, what's every slang term for weed that you can think of?
I was so fucking salty about that. I ended up naming him Sativa, which is one of the 2 types of weed. Apparently indica is also available. You can name your weed cat Sativa or Indica, but you cannot name it Ganja. You cannot name it Spliff. I thought Spliff was a great name. Nope. Game Freak said nay. You stupid stoner. Not in our not in our game for children.
Let's see. Anthony also asks, "Are you still playing Marvel Snap?" Yes, I am collection level 630 right now.
Seems like a lot.
It is a lot, but there are people that are in the thousands, so maybe it's not actually that much. I did share with Micah that I finally got Doctor Doom, which he was very. He didn't say anything, but I'd like to assume that he was jealous of it. He says, "What's your favorite deck or combo?" I've really been enjoying my on reveal deck that I have because I added Shang-Chi to it, and man, people really don't expect him to come out on the last turn of the game, and it's really fun when he does. His ability is that he is only a 3 power card, which is not very much, but he also mercs every 9 or more power card on your opponent's side of that location when he comes into play. So he a lot of people stack up some big boys or like a devil dinosaur that whose power grows with more cards in your hand, and then you just throw Shang-Chi on the table and watch them cry when you murk the entire side of their table. I also had one match which had through White Tiger and the fact that it was at Camartage, which on reveal effects happen twice, and the fact that I got to play Odin means that I had 6 Tiger Spirits on the board by the time the game ended, which is a lot of Tiger Spirits. That's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Been enjoying experimenting with some decks, and then World Cup. Did you see that ludicrous display? Always trying to walk it in. Look, good match today between USA and Wales. England kicked the shit out of Iran earlier today, and the Qatari national team not very good apparently because they got beat pretty soundly by Ecuador in the opening match. Which good. Because, again, this whole World Cup is just a massive effort to sports watch the entire country of Qatar. And a lot of crazy shits happen there, and I'm really emotionally conflicted having to watch.
Qatar sucks.
Yeah, having to watch the World Cup for the next several weeks. Gerard says, been on a binge of Running Wild with Bear Grylls the past couple of days. And in light of that, what wild location would you go to, and what crazy J-inspired creepy food would you eat to survive until extraction time? I think we can almost video game this question.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, look, here's the thing. I take a lot of foraging classes, so like I could survive in the woods for a few days and not starve. Like I have enough knowledge in my head at this point to know which plants are safe to eat and which ones are not. So like I don't think I would have to resort to eating bugs to survive. Like I could get away with like making some wild salads for a few days. And I think I'd be okay.
I would be awful in a woods in a woods endeavor. I think a lot of like food found in nature is very gross and therefore would have trouble.
What do you mean by food found in nature? Like mushrooms or?
Oh yeah, mushrooms are disgusting.
Okay, well,
yeah, they're the
wrong,
worst.
But...
Having to like kill, like actually like process a wild animal yourself that you kill for food.
I wouldn't even have to go hunting. No,
yeah.
I could survive in the woods for like a couple days. Probably not for a long time, but like until extraction. On foraged plant product.
I mean, look, the human spirit is an amazing thing when pushed to the brink. I'm pretty sure that I would have to, but it would be very difficult for me and very harrowing. It'd be probably very similar to that episode of The Office where Michael Scott was left in the woods for like 3 hours and
amazing.
Lost his mind. Film Wander asks, anyone try Vampire Survivors? Have I tried Vampire Survivors? I'm 36 hours into Vampire Survivors. Yeah, it's so good. It is going to be in my top 3 games of the year. Okay. I don't know where it will lie on that list, but it will be up there. It's very, very good, very addictive.
I have not played. My partner's played. He has played quite a bit. It's really good. To be a very good game.
It's really good. I don't know why they haven't put it on the Switch yet. Seems like a natural fit for the Switch. So, Mark says, of all things, finally started playing Slay the Spire. It's been his binge game of late. But holy fuck, I hate the slime balls for slime and this flying fucks for only taking half damage. I know exactly who he's talking about. What enemies and games do you swear devs put in as a fuck you to the player?
Just like at large.
Sure.
I would say anything in like a random battle style game that does not allow you to escape the fight.
Hmm.
That's always a fuck you. I hate that. Just let me leave, man. Like,
If you want to stick with Slay the Spire, I don't know if Mark's gotten to level 3 yet in the game, but there's a creature in level 3 called the Writhing Mass that is just the most fucking annoying thing to fight in that game, because every time you deal damage to it, it changes what it's going to do that round, and it kind of like in terms of like how badly it's going to attack you or how many times it can attack you, and it vacillates wildly between like manageable to like I'm going to hit you for 40 damage, which is a lot for one attack, or maybe I'll put a card in your deck that you can't remove that's just a curse that just sits there and eats up space, because I'm super annoying and the Writhing Mass sucks ass. Basically, if I have a smoke bomb to be able to escape a fight in that game and I run up against the Writhing Mass, I'm just out automatically because I hate fucking dealing with it. It is the worst, absolute worst. Costa says, directed at you, Carrie, how about those Paldean starter evolutions?
I really like Weedcat's final evolution, Meowscarada.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the last few sort of generations, they've the way that the final evolutions for the starters have sort of played out is that they've all sort of had like a theme about them. So the theme with these three appear to be like stage performers. So Meowscarada is specifically described as a magician Pokemon. Meowscarada has very much a very cool, like confident personality about it when in battle, and also looks stoned as fuck. Mascarada's face cracks me up. That cat's really high. And then you have Quaxly's final evolution is a dancer, and just cracks me up. Like, people were thinking Quaxly was going to evolve into something really cool. Quaxly's final Evo looks like a fucking nerdy peacock doing a samba, which is fun in its own right. Like,
isn't Quaxly the Donald Trump looking thing when it's in its starter form?
He's got a little pompadour. He's a little duck with a pompadour. I don't think it's fair to compare it to Trump. I think Quaxly's cute. I think his final evolution is cute. And I haven't seen the I haven't seen it in the game yet. Fuecoco's final evolution appears to be based on like an opera singer. So yeah, I don't know. I'm down with them. They're not really what I expected any of them to evolve into, but that's part of the fun, right? Is, you have a degree of surprise at the end of the day when you're playing a new Pokemon game, unless you delved into every single bit of the leaks to spoil everything for yourself. But I did not. I tried to avoid as many of the leaks as possible, so that I could still have a sense of wonder playing a new Pokemon game. So I like them.
Cam also asks, do you think that we will ever get a fully or even partially voiced Pokemon title?
I think we're heading in that direction. I think if the fact that we have a fully voiced Zelda game is evidence enough. I don't think that, like, I feel like they've never said that they don't want to do that. So I don't know if it's a budget thing or a time thing or anything like that. Obviously, when you're voicing stuff, you do have to pay your voice actors. So that does add a certain level of, budget.
Also, not only that, but audio like just adds a shitload of data to the game.
Yeah,
as well.
It's a lot of data, and it's like, okay, cool. Are you going to do just one? Are we doing English across the board, or Pokemon's available in a dozen different languages, so are you going to voice them in a dozen different languages? So I understand why particularly such a text heavy game as Pokemon hasn't had voice acting yet, because logistically I feel like that would be a bit of a challenge. But I have no doubt in my mind that we will eventually have characters voiced in Pokemon.
And Ricky wraps it up with the saying Argentina all the way in the World Cup. He thinks Mexico is going to lose in the round of 16. And he stopped flying the matches, but their away kit is bomb. Mexico always has really good kits. It makes me sad to have to root against them because they are always very good looking. I picked England to go all the way. I think it's going to be an England-Germany final. And I think that the Three Lions will somehow not fuck it up and manage to pull it out at the breath there. But England always finds ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory when it comes to international soccer tournaments. So that's probably a foolish prediction. That is it. Thank you guys for the late entries to the post office. We completely
Very
forgot
late,
about
like
asking for
literally
it.
mid-show.
But we do appreciate you getting those in there. Again, go to densepixels.com/fans to join our Discord as Twitter slowly descends into the ninth circle of hell.
God, it is madness, and I'm enjoying every second of it.
Yeah, you're gonna want to come hang out with us more in Discord. So make sure you do that if you haven't done so already. As Carrie mentioned earlier, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you download fine podcasts. You can also go to youtube.com/densepixels and subscribe there as well. You can also go over to twitch.tv/densepixels, subscribe to the show. And hey, while you're there, subscribe to Carrie's channel at Sup It's Carrie. Subscribe to Terrence at Apparition 410. Subscribe to me at Densepixels Brad. And that's all we have to plug. That's our show this week.
I have one more thing to plug.
Oh, that's right.
Because my orchestra has 2 shows coming up. Our Oops All Indies program is next weekend, actually. We will be debuting our first of 2 shows. Oops All Indies is accordingly an All Indies program. So we have a fucking banger of a set list for you. We've got Deltarune, we've got Paradise Killer, we've got Journey, we've got Stardew Valley, we've got Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, we've got Overcooked, we've got Hades. Like, the Hades piece we have is we're doing In the Blood. I'll just fucking spoil it. We're doing In the Blood, and it rules. It's going to be a really, really, really fun time. So December 2nd at 7 p.m. at the Solars Point Multipurpose Center in Dundalk. And then the following weekend, December 10th, which is a Saturday at 1 p.m. downtown at the Baltimore War Memorial. Both of these shows are totally free to attend. They are both family-friendly engagements. You can bring your kids to come out and enjoy some video game music. We do run visuals with the music as well. So it's a whole experience. We've been working really hard on this program. I have 2 pieces on this program that I arranged myself, and couldn't be more proud of how things are sounding already. So really hope to see some of you guys there. Again, December 2nd and December 10th, or you can just head to facebook.com/BaltimoreGSO to learn more. So hope to see you guys there.
If you are in America, enjoy your Turkey Day this week. Shop small businesses on Saturday and buy a shitload of discounted video games this weekend, especially at densepixels.com/Amazon, which is the antithesis of small business. But hey, for every $1 you spend on there, spend $1 with a local small business and help them as well over the weekend. Thank you guys very much for watching and listening. We'll see you all the next time.
See ya.
You're watching the Dense Pixels YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button while you're here and make sure you check out our weekly podcast where we discuss the latest gaming news and our impressions on what games we've been playing.